The Galaxy Council had ruled longer than any living memory could recall. 5,000 years of order, of laws carved into the very fabric of the stars. Empires rose beneath their shadow, and countless species bowed before their banners of light. Their fleets patrolled the black like gods, their judges spoke with the cold voice of logic, and their enemies were turned into forgotten dust. For 5,000 years, the galaxy obeyed. And then one quiet day, everything changed. It began with a flicker, a strange anomaly at the edge of mapped space. A small blue planet long erased from records had begun to shine again. Sensors screamed of movement, energy surges, and something impossible, transmissions in ancient, dead human code. At first, the Council dismissed it. Earth was gone, burned clean in the Great Cleansing thousands of years ago after the humans defied the Council's command to submit their world to the collective law. The cleansing fleet had turned the planet into a wasteland of ash and glass. The humans had been written off, an error corrected, a lesson taught. No one survived. At least that was the story the Council told itself. But the sensors didn't lie. They showed lights, cities glowing again through the dark clouds. They showed ships leaving orbit, ugly metal beasts covered in scars, rising like resurrected ghosts. They showed signals spreading through the void, crackling with human laughter and old radio frequencies that hadn't been heard for thousands of years. And then came a message, a single broadcast repeated in every known tongue across every channel. We remember everything. The Council chamber fell silent. Every species, reptilian, insectoid, crystalline, and synthetic, turned to stare at the high speaker. For a long time, no one dared breathe. Finally, the speaker's voice echoed through the chamber. "Impossible," he said. "The human race is extinct." But deep inside, even he didn't believe it. The galaxy had always whispered stories, old warnings told by smugglers and wanderers who swore they'd seen something human beyond the rim. Ships shaped like knives, moving without light. Dead planets found burning again. Whole fleets disappearing without a trace. Ghost stories. Until now. Within hours, the Council sent reconnaissance drones. None returned. The only thing that came back was a data burst, static, broken fragments of sound. Among them, a voice, human and cold. "We warned you not to look for us." Then the transmission ended with laughter. Not joy, not madness, just laughter. It was the kind of laughter that made even alien hearts twist with fear. The Council assembled again. Some demanded peace, others demanded war. The speaker finally declared, "We will remind these ghosts of their place." So they sent a fleet. The 7th Armada, 2,000 warships, enough firepower to break moons. The fleet arrived in Sol system 3 days later. What they found was not what they expected. Earth was alive. The planet still bore scars, craters the size of continents, seas of black glass, storm systems that never stopped. But above it floated an armada of human ships. They were crude, built of raw steel and radiation shielding, not elegant like the Council's sleek cruisers. They looked like relics from a darker time, but they moved with purpose. As the Council fleet approached, the humans didn't hail them. They didn't posture or negotiate. They simply opened a wideband channel. A voice spoke, calm, dry. "Older than time. You came again." The alien admiral tried to respond, but the human voice continued, cutting across every frequency. "We remember the fire, the screaming skis, the cleansing you called mercy. You said humanity was a virus. You said the galaxy would heal without us." There was a long pause. "You were wronged." And then the stars screamed. The human fleet attacked, not with energy weapons, not with plasma cannons, but with simple rods of tungsten hurled at near-light speed. Kinetic strikes, the oldest, simplest weapon of all. The first hit vaporized a dreadnought. The second turned a carrier into molten fragments. Within 7 minutes, half the Council fleet was gone. The rest fled. No human ships were destroyed. The survivors sent panicked transmissions. "They are using gravity weapons, mass drivers, primitive tech, but devastating. Their AI systems, our systems are locking up. They're inside our code. They're laughing at us." And then silence. The fleet vanished. The Council tried to contain the news, but it was too late. Every corner of the galaxy had heard the rumors. The humans were back, the monsters from the cradle world, the species that never surrendered even to extinction. Fear spread faster than light. Some said the humans had evolved beyond flesh, that they now lived as ghosts in their machines. Others said they'd made pacts with the void, learned to bend gravity and death itself. No one knew the truth. All that was certain was this: Earth had risen again, and it remembered. The High Speaker called for peace talks. A diplomatic envoy was dispatched under white flag protocols, untouchable by the ancient laws of war. It never arrived. Weeks later, a single escape pod was found drifting in deep space. Inside was a small black cube. When activated, it projected a hologram, a human standing in the shadows, smiling faintly. "We don't want your peace," the voice said. "We want you to remember what you did." Then the hologram turned into images: burning cities, dying children, the old footage of Earth's cleansing. And then, one by one, it showed the faces of the council leaders who had ordered it. "We remember their names," the voice whispered. "We remember their children's names. We remember their homeworlds." Then the cube melted. Panic consumed the council. Worlds went dark, fleets deserted. The speaker ordered the archives purged, any mention of the cleansing erased forever. But it was too late. Humanity had already found their history. They had unearthed every file, every recording, every atrocity. They remembered everything. And they would never forget again. The speaker stood before the council once more. His hands trembled. His voice cracked as he spoke. This cannot be the same humans," he whispered. "They should not have survived." An old historian looked up from her console, her many eyes blinking in fear. "They didn't," she said quietly. "Not the way we understand survival." The chamber fell silent again. For the first time in 5,000 years, the council felt something they had forgotten, something small, ancient, and terrible. Fear. Outside in the dark between stars, human ships moved like shadows. Their signals whispered through the void, echoing across every frequency. "We remember. We endure. We are coming." And for the first time since the dawn of galactic civilization, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Because the children of Earth had returned. And they had not come in peace. The council called them the ghosts from the cradle. No one knew how humans survived, but the proof was in the ruins, their ships, their weapons, their terrifying silence. The first fleet sent to investigate had vanished. Not defeated, not destroyed, just gone. Their signals cut mid-transmission, their ships swallowed by the dark. Sometimes wreckage would drift back, broken hulls with the words "Remember Earth" burned into the metal. And sometimes there were no remains at all. The galaxy began to whisper. Humanity had changed. They no longer looked like the creatures the council once enslaved. They had adapted to the void. Some said they no longer needed air, that they lived within machines. Others claimed they could walk in radiation storms, that their blood had become silver, their hearts powered by the same energy that ran through stars. But what scared the galaxy most wasn't what humans had become. It was what they remembered. The first time a human fleet appeared in open space, it wasn't to conquer, it was to speak. They arrived at the edge of the Varnus system, where a council relay station blinked quietly, unmanned for centuries. A single human ship hovered near it, black, jagged, and scarred like it had survived 1,000 wars. Its hull bore no insignia, only 3 words. "From the ashes, us." The outpost hailed them, shaking with fear. "Identify yourselves. You are violating council." The reply came through before the sentence finished. "Council law burned our world. We burned the law." Then before the Varnus operators could respond, the human ship turned and fired, not at the outpost, but at the empty void ahead. A blinding streak of light tore across the system, vanishing into hyperspace. Minutes later, reports flooded in. 3 Council war satellites, millions of kilometers away, had been reduced to molten debris. They hadn't fired a warning, they had sent a message. The Council tried again to reason. They sent envoys, ambassadors, holy priests. They carried gifts, apologies, treaties written in 100 languages. The humans sent one ship to meet them, an ancient-looking craft, rusted and heavy. The Council's representatives entered the ship and never came back. Days later, the vessel released escape pods filled with their uniforms, neatly folded, untouched. No bodies, no answers, just a short note etched into the metal. "You can't talk peace with ghosts." Fear turned to anger. The Council gathered its largest armada in 2 millennia, over 10,000 ships from 100 worlds. It was supposed to be a show of strength. But the humans didn't fight them in open space. They fought like shadows, hitting fuel convoys, jamming communication relays, turning navigation systems against their users. And then they disappeared before any retaliation could come. One by one, the Council's ships stopped responding. One by one, their systems went dark. When the Armada finally regrouped near the twin suns of Erixa, only a third remained. The rest had been pulled into the gravity wells of dead moons, their captains tricked by false readings, their fleets lured into traps. Every destroyed ship carried the same digital graffiti carved into its black box logs. "You burned our home, we learned from you." For the first time in 5,000 years, the Council realized it was losing control. Worlds began to question their power. Colonies refused to pay tribute. Even their own soldiers whispered about the humans with awe and dread. Because the humans were not fighting for land. They were fighting for memory. And that made them unstoppable. A Council scientist named Viral, the last living historian of the cleansing, was summoned to the High Chamber. His body shook as he spoke before the leaders. "They don't want territory," he said. "They want truth. They want the galaxy to remember what was done to them." The High Speaker hissed, "Then we will remind them why they were erased." But Viral shook his head. "You cannot erase what has already become legend." Later, alone in his quarters, the historian watched the night sky through a glass dome. He could see the streaks of human ships, thin trails of light like falling stars, silent and relentless. He whispered a prayer in the old tongue, one he had not spoken in centuries. "May the ghosts forgive us." But deep inside, he knew they never would. Because the humans weren't seeking forgiveness. They were seeking balance. And balance to them meant fire. They called it the Iron Frontier. A line of human colonies spreading like wildfire through the void, each one born from ash, carved in silence, defended by iron and memory. They didn't look like the shining cities of other worlds. There were no palaces, no cathedrals of glass and gold. Human worlds were dark, cold, and sharp, built beneath storms and radiation clouds. Every structure was armor. Every mine was a fortress. Every sky carried a reminder of war. Above every colony gate, one phrase was carved deep into the steel. "Never again." The Galaxy Council tried to understand them. How could a race that once begged for mercy now stand unbroken? They sent spies, scholars, even captured humans who had been raised on alien worlds. None of them returned. One probe that escaped with partial footage showed a glimpse of what the Council feared most: children training in zero gravity, building rifles from scrap metal, painting the names of old Earth cities on their armor. New London, Havana Prime, Seoul's Echo. Every name was a ghost, every name a promise. When the Council sent ships to attack these outposts, humanity didn't defend them. They let the enemy come closer, then detonated entire moons, turning the sky into shrapnel. 1,000 alien fleets fell to tricks humans called old tactics. Gravity traps, kinetic ambushes, suicide drones. Nothing elegant, nothing beautiful. Just effective, brutal, final. The Council soon realized something even worse. Humans didn't care about territory. They didn't build an empire, they built reminders. When a battle was won, humans didn't stay. They left behind silent stations, drifting through the black, transmitting a single line of text over and over again. "This is the price of forgetting us." The galaxy began to change. Entire species withdrew from Council space, afraid of becoming the next target. Trade routes collapsed. The old order, 5,000 years strong, was cracking under fear. And through it all, the humans kept moving forward, world by world, message by message, never stopping, never forgiving. Among them rose a name that would echo forever: the Admiral of Ash. No one knew who she was. Some said she was the last survivor of the cleansing. Others said she was not even human anymore, that her body was built of metal and grief. What mattered was her voice, cold, steady, unshaken. Her fleet was the largest in human history, 1,000 ships forged from wreckage and rage. Wherever she went, stars died. Her first broadcast to the Council was brief. "You called us savages. You said we were too emotional, too violent, too human. You were right. Then her ships fired. The siege of Corthan Prime became legend. The Council had gathered 3 planetary shields, 20 fleets, and a ring of orbital cannons that could melt asteroids. The humans arrived with 8 ships. They didn't attack the shields. They attacked the planet's sun. It took 10 minutes. The star dimmed, then collapsed into itself, dragging everything, the fleets, the cannons, the capital, into a burning grave. When the explosion ended, there was nothing left but silence. And a message carved into the wreckage. We learned from you. Back in the Council's core worlds, the panic was complete. Entire systems surrendered without a fight, begging for mercy from a species that no longer understood the word. A young alien officer, barely grown, whispered to his commander, "Why don't they stop? Why don't they take the galaxy and rule it?" The old commander stared at the dark screen where Earth's flag, a single blue sphere on black, flickered in defiance. "They don't want to rule it," he said softly. "They just want us to feel what they felt." On the Iron Frontier, human ships gathered in orbit around a small world of ice. A transmission went out, carried across the stars. "We do not seek your crown, we do not seek your peace, we seek your memory. Remember Earth, remember what you did to us, remember it forever." The signal repeated endlessly, echoing across the galaxy. And in that echo, entire civilizations shuddered. Because humanity was no longer just a people. They were a storm. They were a reckoning. They were the Iron Frontier. And they were still coming. The war was over. At least, that was what the Galaxy Council told itself. Every great fleet had fallen, every fortress burned. Every law they once ruled by now lay in ashes. For 5,000 years, the Council had stood untouchable until humanity returned. Now they stood on their knees. The Council's capital, Virx Prime, once shone like a jewel, a planet of white towers and golden light, its surface wrapped in shields and music. Now the sky burned red. The oceans boiled with wreckage. The air was filled with static, the ghosts of lost fleets whispering through broken channels. The High Speaker sat in silence upon his throne, his shimmering robes torn and darkened by smoke. Around him, the remaining council members trembled. They had spent centuries commanding galaxies, but now their voices were small, their hands shaking. "Send the message," the speaker said. "We surrender." The words hung in the air like poison. No one had spoken them in 5,000 years. Across the stars, the signal spread, a single word echoing through every frequency, every world, every ship still alive. Surrender. Whole civilizations heard it and wept. Some celebrated, thinking it meant peace at last. Others buried their dead, knowing peace was no longer the same thing it used to be. When the humans received the signal, they didn't respond. Not right away. For days, the galaxy held its breath. Then from the black void of space, a human ship appeared in orbit above Virx Prime. It was not large. It was not shining. It was scarred, its hull covered in the marks of 1,000 battles. The humans didn't bring an army. They didn't bring demands. They brought silence. The speaker himself came to meet them, surrounded by guards. But when the airlock opened, no human stepped out. Only a small drone drifted forward, black metal, shaped like a skull, glowing faintly blue. The speaker bowed, his voice shaking. "On behalf of the Galactic Council," he said, "we." The drone interrupted with a voice that froze the air. Calm, cold, familiar. "We don't want your surrender." The speaker blinked. "What do you mean?" "You ruled through fear. You ended worlds in the name of peace. You erased our home and called it justice. You surrendered when you could no longer win." The drone floated closer, the light in its eye burning like a dying star. "We didn't fight to rule you, we fought to end you." The speaker's voice broke. "You can't mean to destroy everything. We can rebuild together." There was a long pause, then the human voice whispered, "You don't rebuild what's rotten. You burn it so nothing grows from it again." And with that, the drone turned and vanished into the dark. Days later, the humans sent their final transmission. It was not to the Council, but to every free world in the galaxy. "Your rulers have surrendered. We do not accept it. The Council will fall not because we demand it, but because it deserves to. You are free. Choose what you will do with that freedom. But know this, if another Council rises, if another empire tries to rule by fear, we will come again. Then the signal cut. No further orders, no invasion, no occupation. The humans simply disappeared. At first, the galaxy was stunned. Planets waited for the next attack, for the human fleets to demand tribute. But they never came. Instead, the stars remained quiet. On Vierx Prime, the speaker stood before the ruins of the council hall. He stared up at the night sky, where human ships were fatting from orbit. "What are they?" he whispered. His aide answered softly, "Not conquerors, not anymore." The speaker closed his eyes. "Then what?" The aide hesitated, then spoke the truth that all the galaxy had begun to understand. "They are judgment." And so the age of the council ended, not in glory, not in rebellion, but in silence. Worlds once bound by law and fear found themselves free but empty. The old systems collapsed. Chaos spread. But amidst the confusion, one truth took root across the galaxy, whispered in every language. Earth refused to surrender. And somehow, that refusal became a spark. On the broken worlds, people began to rise again, not as servants of the council, not as slaves of order, but as something new. Because if humanity could rise from fire and ruin, maybe others could too. In the end, the council didn't fall because of war. It fell because humanity reminded the galaxy what it meant to defy. And somewhere far beyond the stars, the children of Ash watched in silence. Their vengeance complete, their legacy written in iron and flame. The galaxy would remember them. Forever. The galaxy thought the war was over. But humans never stopped. After the council's surrender, there should have been peace. The fleets should have gone silent, the fire should have faded, but instead something worse happened: fear. Without the council's rule, worlds turned on each other. Old enemies rose again. Civilizations began to tear themselves apart, and through it all, one question echoed across the stars. Where are the humans now? No one knew. Until one day they came back. It started with a shadow on the edge of the void, hundreds of ships appearing near the remains of Vierx Prime. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't ask for peace or revenge. They just waited. At first, everyone thought it was another fleet of the Children of Ash. But these ships were different, darker, quieter, heavier. They carried no insignia, no heat signatures, no sound. Then the transmission came. "We told you not to rebuild the council." Every species across the galaxy froze. Because it was true, behind the chaos, a remnant of the old council had secretly gathered on the ruins of their capital. The surviving admirals, the last speakers, the families of the once powerful, had built a hidden armada. They called it the Restoration Fleet. They thought humanity was gone. They were wrong. The council's remnants, desperate and proud, prepared for war again. They broadcast across the void. "We will not be ruled by ghosts. We will restore the order of the stars." The humans responded with laughter. A cold, bitter sound that rolled through every frequency in the galaxy. "You can't restore what we already buried." Then the skis lit up. The final battle began. The Restoration Fleet stretched across 6 systems, billions strong. Every weapon the galaxy had ever built was aimed toward one direction, Sol system, toward Earth. But when they arrived, there was no resistance. No armies, no shields, no fleets. Earth floated quietly beneath them, blue, scarred, and empty. The alien commanders hesitated. "Where are they?" one asked. Then a signal came from the planet itself, a single voice, ancient and calm. "You wanted Earth." A pause. "Take it." For a moment, everything went still. Then the planet began to glow, softly at first, then brighter, until it burned like a newborn sun. The ground split open, mountains collapsing, oceans turning to steam. The aliens tried to flee, but their ships wouldn't move. Gravitational locks, human-made traps pulled them back. The light grew blinding. And then Earth exploded. The blast tore through the system like a living storm. The energy wave stretched for light years, consuming fleets, stations, even moons. Entire star systems burned. The shockwave hit faster than any engine could escape. Billions of ships vanished in seconds. The Restoration Fleet, the last army of the Council, was gone. When the light faded, all that remained was dust. Dust and a single satellite still orbiting where Earth had been. On its surface, words were engraved into the metal. We were never fighting to survive. We were teaching you what it feels like. The galaxy went silent. The explosion left a scar that could be seen from every inhabited world, a hole in the night where Earth used to be. Astronomers called it the grave star. It glowed faintly red, forever burning, forever empty. For generations, no one dared to speak the word human. Their fleets were gone, their worlds were silent, but no one believed they were truly dead. Because strange things began to happen. Ships vanished in empty space. Abandoned worlds lit up for a single night, their ruins glowing with blue fire. Old council leaders disappeared from their own beds, their palaces found empty and cold. And always, before it happened, they heard the same whisper through their comms. We are still watching. Centuries later, when children looked at the empty space where Earth once was, they would ask their elders, why did the humans destroy their own world? And the elders would answer softly, because it was never theirs anymore. It belonged to the dead. The galaxy rebuilt itself slowly. New leaders rose, new laws were written, but no one ever tried to form another council. No one dared to rule the stars again. The memory of humanity, the children of Ash, was enough to keep them humble. They had turned their home into a weapon. They had turned their pain into a lesson. And in that final act, they had burned their names into eternity. Even after 5,000 years, no one forgot. No one dared. Because the stars still whispered one truth, again and again, through the cold dark of space. Earth refused to surrender. And in that refusal, the galaxy finally learned what freedom meant. The war had ended, but peace never truly came. The galaxy lived in the shadow of ghosts. The stars were quiet now, too quiet. Every world that had once worshipped the Council's power now looked up at the night sky and remembered the day Earth burned itself into a sun. They called the empty space the wound, a scar where Saul used to shine. No ship dared go near it, no one mined there. No one even whispered its coordinates aloud. It became holy ground, sacred and cursed at the same time. But even in the silence, the memory of humanity refused to die. Centuries passed. Civilizations rebuilt. Empires rose again, but slower this time, gentler. Fear had taught them caution. Every ruler, every council, every leader looked at the wound before passing judgment or declaring war. Because they all remembered the same words, etched into that orbiting satellite left behind after Earth's explosion. We were never fighting to survive. We were teaching you what it feels like. Some called it cruelty, others called it justice. But everyone called it truth. Over time, humanity became legend. Some said they still lived, hidden beyond the rim of known space, building in silence, watching from the dark. Others claimed they had become something greater, that their minds had merged with the void itself, becoming the very energy that flowed through the stars. Children in far-off colonies would stare at the night sky and whisper, if you listen hard enough, you can still hear them laughing. And sometimes they swore they did. One story spread faster than the rest. It was said that, once every century, a faint signal echoed from the wound. A single human voice repeating through static, broken but clear enough to make the blood run cold. Still here. Still human. Still free. No one ever traced its source. Some said it came from an old satellite drifting near where Earth used to be. Others said it came from deeper, far below the visible stars, from a place where light itself refused to go. But wherever it came from, it always stopped after 3 words. And the galaxy would fall silent again. They were called the Ash Years, a time when the galaxy moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid of waking the ghosts of humanity. Ships traveled in smaller fleets. Colonies refused to build massive weapons. Whole species erased the word empire from their languages. No one wanted to rule anymore. Because everyone remembered what happened to those who tried. But fear alone could not erase curiosity. Eventually, explorers and scientists began to search again, quietly and carefully. They wanted to understand what humanity had done, how they had turned their own world into a weapon, how they had disappeared without a trace. A small exploration team from the Lyran Union was the first to try. Their leader, Captain Viras, was young, too young to remember the war. He didn't believe in ghosts. "We can't live afraid of the past," he told his crew. "We'll find the truth." So they went to the wound. For 3 days, their transmissions were clear. They reported strange readings, gravitational waves pulsing like a heartbeat, radiation patterns shaped like language. On the 4th day, their signal changed. It wasn't Lyran's speech anymore, it was human. "Leave this place." Then silence. When a rescue fleet arrived weeks later, all they found was the Lyran flagship, cold, empty, and drifting. The only thing inside was a single sentence carved into the captain's chair. "They are still here." After that, no one returned to the wound. Years turned into centuries, and the legend grew. Humans became gods, demons, protectors, destroyers, whatever each world needed them to be. Some built temples to honor them. Others taught their children to never speak their name aloud. But whether feared or worshipped, humanity remained in every story, every history, every memory. They had become eternal, not because of their power, but because of their defiance. They had refused to bow, refused to forget, refused to surrender. And so, through all the ages that followed, the galaxy remembered. When tyrants rose, they hesitated. When wars began, they faltered. When leaders grew arrogant, they looked up at the wound and whispered a quiet prayer. "Don't wake them," because even after thousands of years, the stars still trembled at the thought of Earth's children. The ones who taught the galaxy fear. The ones who taught it freedom. The ones who turned to ash and never truly died. 5,000 years after the wound was born, the galaxy had healed, but never forgotten. Empires had come and gone, new species had risen, and old ones faded into dust. Trade, peace, and quiet had returned to the stars. Children no longer feared the dark between worlds. But no one spoke the name Earth, not even in whispers. Until one day, a signal broke the silence. It came from deep space, beyond the charts, beyond the oldest maps, a small pulse of energy, faint and ancient. The scanners almost missed it. It wasn't like any modern code. It was old, primitive, human. The explorers who found it were from a small research vessel called the Dawnfare. They were young, curious, and foolish enough to follow it. The ship's captain, Lyra, watched the repeating signal on her screen. It was slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "Could it be them?" one of her crew whispered. Lyra didn't answer. She just stared at the pattern and felt something stir inside her chest, fear and wonder tangled together. The coordinates led them toward the wound. It was still there, vast and dark, a scar that swallowed light itself. Even after 5,000 years, it pulsed faintly red, like a wound that refused to heal. Every protocol screamed for them to turn back, but curiosity won. "Take us in," Lyra said softly. The crew obeyed. As they entered the edge of the anomaly, their instruments went wild. Time slowed, gravity bent, the stars outside twisted into ribbons of light, and through the static something spoke. A voice broken, old, and human. "Still here." The crew froze. "Still human." The ship's lights flickered, panels sparked, the captain's heart pounded. "Still free." Then silence. No one dared breathe. "Did we just—" a crew member began, but before he could finish, another pulse hit the ship. This one stronger. It wasn't words this time, it was images. Flashes of Earth as it once was, blue oceans, green forests, cities of steel and glass. Then the war, fire in the sky. The Council's fleets raining death. And finally, a single planet burning brighter than a star. Then came the last image, a group of humans standing in the light, smiling, not with anger but peace. When the vision ended, the ship was drifting, every system offline. The crew sat in silence, staring out at the wound, which now glowed faintly with blue light, not red. "Captain," whispered the navigator. "That voice, it wasn't a ghost, it was a recording." Lyra nodded slowly. "No, not just a recording, a message." She replayed the signal, running it through modern translators. After hours of decoding, words appeared on the screen, faint, fragmented, but clear enough to read. "To whoever finds this, we are gone but not dead. We became the stars. We became the silence that watches you. If you learned from us, then our fight was worth it. If you forget, we will return." The crew stared at each other, speechless. "Don't fear the dark, we made it for you." And then faint laughter, human laughter echoed through the speakers, warm and haunting. The message ended. For a long time, no one spoke. The silence of space surrounded them like a living thing. Then the captain stood. "Record this," she said. "All of it the galaxy needs to hear." When the Dawnfire returned, their story spread faster than light. Every world, every species, every child heard the message of the humans, the last transmission from the children of Ash. And for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy did not tremble in fear. It wept. Temples that once worshipped the memory of humanity now sang songs of thanks. Worlds that once lived in fear looked to the stars not with terror, but hope. Because the humans hadn't vanished in hate. They had left behind a lesson. Not about power, not about vengeance, but about freedom. The freedom to stand, even when the universe says kneel. The freedom to remember, even when history burns. The freedom to defy, no matter the cost. On quiet nights, travelers still look to the wound, glowing faintly blue now, and they swear they can see shapes moving among the stars, ships maybe, or spirits. And sometimes, when the wind hums through a calm relay, a voice whispers in the static. Still here, still human, still free. And the stars answer in silence, remembering the ones who refused to surrender. The ones who burned, and in burning became eternal. Humanity never surrenders.